The Calgary Stampede is a whirlwind of light and sound, of cheering crowds and the scent of mini donuts hanging in the air. For 10 days, the city comes alive with a pulse that thumps from the fairgrounds out to the furthest suburbs. I'd spent the whole day there, lost in the spectacle. I watched the chuck wagon races until my voice was hoarse from screaming, rode the Ferris wheel until the neon lights below blurred into a beautiful, chaotic river, and ate enough fried food to last a year. It was exhilarating, a perfect dose of Western energy. But as the final firework burst and faded against the inky black sky, that energy began to drain away, replaced by the bone-deep weariness that comes after a long, exciting day. The crowds, once a comforting, unified mass, started to thin out, scattering like leaves in the wind. Soon, the boisterous laughter and music were replaced by a low, humming silence, broken only by the distant clatter of crews cleaning up. I was one of the last to leave. My feet ached in my cowboy boots, and all I could think about was collapsing into the soft, clean sheets of my hotel bed. The main paths were still dotted with a few stragglers, but the route to my parking lot, one of the further, cheaper ones, was quiet. Eerily so. The vibrant lights of the Midway were now just stark, functional floodlights, casting long, distorted shadows that danced at the edge of my vision. That's when I first heard it. A sound so simple, so ordinary, yet in the echoing emptiness, it felt deeply out of place. Footsteps. And they weren't mine. I paused for a second, my hand clutching the strap of my purse, and listened. The sound stopped when I did. My heart gave a little jolt. Coincidence, I told myself. Just another tired fairgoer heading home. I started walking again, a little faster this time, the crunch of my boots on the gravel sounding unnaturally loud. And there it was again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. A steady, rhythmic echo of my own pace just a few beats behind. I risked a quick glance over my shoulder. Nothing. Just the vast, empty expanse of the fairgrounds, the skeletons of retired rides standing like silent giants against the night sky. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the long day and the spooky shadows were just playing tricks on my mind. I picked up my pace, trying to dismiss the growing knot of fear in my stomach. But the footsteps matched me, step for frantic step. Faster when I walked faster, a deliberate, heavy tread that seemed to mock my own hurried steps. It was a game of cat and mouse, and I was definitely the mouse. The sound was relentless. It wasn't just behind me anymore. It felt like it was all around me, bouncing off the silent food stalls and empty game booths. The colorful, happy facade of the Stampede had melted away, revealing something skeletal and menacing beneath. Every shadow looked like a figure. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. My breath hitched in my chest, coming in short, sharp gasps. The car keys in my pocket suddenly felt like they were a million miles away. I didn't dare look back again. I didn't want to see who was there. The not knowing was terrifying, but the thought of seeing a face in the darkness was so much worse. My car was parked at the far edge of the lot, under a flickering fluorescent light that did little to push back the encroaching darkness. It looked like a tiny safe island in a sea of black asphalt. I fumbled for my keys, my fingers shaking so badly it took 3 tries to even get them out of my pocket. The footsteps were closer now. So much closer. I could almost feel the vibration through the soles of my boots. The quiet scrape of leather on gravel. A heavy, deliberate presence just beyond the range of the flickering light. I jammed the key into the lock, the sound of the click echoing like a gunshot in the silence. I threw myself into the driver's seat, not even bothering to close the door all the way before ramming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and in that same instant, I slammed the door shut and locked it. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. For a split second I saw him, a tall, broad figure standing right at the edge of the light's reach. He was just a silhouette, a dark shape with no discernible features, but his stillness was more terrifying than any movement. He just stood there, watching me. As I threw the car into reverse and peeled out of that parking spot, Tires screeching, he didn't move. He just melted back into the shadows, as if the darkness itself had swallowed him whole. The drive back to my hotel was a blur. I blasted the radio, trying to drown out the silence and the memory of those footsteps. My hands were clamped to the steering wheel in a white-knuckled grip. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see that dark figure reappear in the reflection, but the road behind me remained empty. I ran every yellow light, desperate to put as much distance as possible between myself and the fairgrounds. By the time I pulled into the bright, well-lit hotel parking garage, I was starting to feel foolish. Maybe it was all in my head, an overactive imagination fueled by exhaustion and too much sugar. The man was probably just another person walking to his car, and the eerie silence had turned a simple coincidence into a horror movie in my mind. I took a few deep breaths, the clean, sterile smell of the parking garage helping to calm my frayed nerves. I was safe now. The hotel was full of people with bright hallways and security cameras. I grabbed my purse and stepped out of the car, my legs still a little shaky. I locked the doors, the chirp of the alarm a reassuring sound in the quiet garage. I forced a laugh, a shaky, uncertain sound. What a story I'd have to tell tomorrow. You won't believe it, I thought I was being chased out of the Stampede last night. It already sounded ridiculous. My paranoia felt silly in the safety of this concrete bunker. I turned to walk toward the elevator, already thinking about the hot shower and soft bed waiting for me. And that's when I saw it. There, on the driver's side door, right next to the handle I had just used. It was a handprint. It was large, much larger than my own, and it was perfectly clear against the dusty surface of my car door. It wasn't an old smudge. It was fresh. The print was so detailed I could see the individual whorls of the fingertips, the faint lines of the palm. It was pressed flat against the metal, a possessive, deliberate mark. My blood ran cold. He hadn't just been following me from a distance. He hadn't vanished into the shadows. He had been close enough to touch my car, close enough to have reached out and grabbed me before I got inside. He had been right there, standing silently in the darkness beside me as I trembled and fumbled with my keys. He had let me go, and he had left me a little souvenir, a chilling reminder that he could have reached me anytime he wanted. I stumbled back against the neighboring car, my breath catching in my throat. The hotel, which had felt like a fortress just moments before, now felt like a fragile cage. The handprint was a promise, a message. He knew where I was. As I finally made it up to my room and triple-bolted the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. Every creak of the building, every distant noise from the hallway sounded like his footsteps, starting their slow, steady rhythm all over again. The Calgary Stampede was over for me, but I had a horrifying feeling that my own personal horror show was just beginning. The energy of the Calgary Stampede is electric, isn't it? The roar of the rodeo, the scent of mini donuts and sizzling barbecue, the kaleidoscope of midway lights painting the night sky. For Eve, it was the perfect end to a long week. She'd laughed until her sides hurt, won a ridiculously oversized stuffed animal, and felt the familiar thrill of the city she loved coming alive for its 10-day party. But as the crowds thinned and the last of the fireworks faded, that festive energy began to curdle into something else entirely. The walk back to the parking lot was long, longer than she remembered. The once bustling Midway was now a ghost town of shuttered stalls and skeletal rides. The only sounds were the distant hum of a generator and the gravel crunching under her boots. Crunch, 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 then she heard it. A second set of footsteps just behind her. Crunch, 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 perfectly in sync with her own. A cold prickle danced up her spine. She told herself it was nothing. Just another late-night straggler heading for their car. She quickened her pace, her heart starting to hammer against her ribs. The footsteps behind her sped up too, maintaining their unnerving rhythm. It was like a game of Simon Says, but with a terrifying, unseen partner. She risked a quick glance over her shoulder. In the dim glow of a security light, she saw him. A tall silhouette, a man in a dark jacket, his face lost in the shadows. He wasn't hurrying, just matching her. Every step she took, he took. She started to weave through the empty food court, hoping to lose him, taking sharp, nonsensical turns. But the footsteps were relentless, a steady, metronomic echo of her own growing panic. The parking lot was a vast, dark expanse, her small sedan parked under a flickering lamp at the far end. It felt miles away. The air grew thick and heavy, each breath a struggle. The man was closer now. She could almost feel his presence, a cold spot in the warm summer air. She fumbled in her purse for her keys, her fingers clumsy and trembling. The jingle of the metal sounded deafeningly loud in the silence. She didn't dare look back again. She just ran. Pure, unthinking flight. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but the thought of those steady, matching footsteps propelled her forward. She reached her car, ramming the key into the lock, her hands shaking so violently it took 3 tries to get the door open. She threw herself inside, slammed the door, and hit the lock button. The click echoed like a gunshot. Her heart was a wild bird trapped in her chest. She jammed the key into the ignition, the engine roaring to life. Her headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the empty space where the man had been. He was gone, vanished, as if he'd been swallowed by the shadows themselves. Had she imagined it? Was the adrenaline in the late hour playing tricks on her mind? Shaking, she pulled out of the parking lot, tires squealing on the asphalt. She kept checking her rearview mirror, her eyes scanning the dark streets, but there was nothing. Just empty roads and the sleeping city. The drive back to her hotel was a blur of anxiety. Every shadow seemed to hold a figure. Every pair of headlights felt like a pursuit. By the time she reached the hotel, relief washed over her in a dizzying wave. She was safe. It was just a weird, scary encounter. A story she'd tell her friends tomorrow, laughing about how she'd overreacted. She parked, took a few deep breaths to steady her nerves, and got out, grabbing her purse and the stupid, oversized stuffed animal from the passenger seat. She walked towards the hotel entrance, the fluorescent lights of the lobby a welcoming beacon. As she reached for the door handle, she froze. There, pressed against the cool glass, was a handprint. It was large, clear, and perfectly formed in the condensation from the air conditioning. It wasn't hers, and it was fresh. The moisture was still beating around the edges of the palm and fingers. He hadn't just followed her to her car. He had followed her all the way here, and he'd been close enough to touch her door, closer than she ever knew. The safety of the lobby dissolved, replaced by a chilling realization. The game wasn't over. She wasn't safe at all. She was just in a different part of the board. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there, and always check your doors.